Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to today's live lesson. Please, can you let me know if the sound is okay and the video is okay? Let me know if there's any problems before we get started. I'm in a new house, so it's the first time I'm doing a live lesson from this new house. So I just want to make sure that the setup is all okay before we get into the lesson more. So please just let me know in the chat if everything is fine, and then we can get started. Thank you for letting me know it's okay. So my name is Lizzie. It's nice to see some of you again. If you're new here, then welcome. Nice to meet you. I'm a teacher on Cambly, and I'm going to be teaching you this live lesson today. We're going to have a chat today about accents. And we are going to get into this properly soon. But first, I think it would be a good idea to just wait for some more people to join. So while we wait for some more people to join, and also please remember to share this lesson with any friends you have or any other English learners you might know who might be interested in this type of lesson. Remember to share it with them. You can do that by just clicking the share button at the bottom of this video. And also you can share it with people after this video because you'll be able to watch this again. So if they're not available to watch it right now, they can watch it again at a later date or time. So yeah, please, as some of you are already doing, please let me know where you're calling from in the chat, just so I can get an idea of who we have with us today. Let's just see what you're saying. Where am I? I am in London. I don't know why I forgot there. I couldn't remember where I was. I'm in London in the United Kingdom at the moment. And it's actually really nice weather. It's been not very nice recently. It's been like very cool, maybe like 20 degrees. Not awful weather, but not summer weather because it's summer here now. But today it's a bit of a heat wave again. It's got hotter again. I thought summer was over, but now it seems to have reappeared. So yeah, where are you guys calling? Where are you guys joining from? We've got Czech Republic, Turkmenistan, hi, Turkey, Japan, Paul from South Sudan, hi Paul, thanks for joining. We've got people from Ghana, Zambia, Stacy, hi, from South Korea, thanks for joining again. Indonesia. Yes, this video is live, but it will be posted again after the live has ended, so you'll be able to rewatch it. I'm just going to clean my camera slightly. I don't know if it's just my eyesight, but to me it looks a little bit... Is that any different? I don't know. Okay, what else have we got? Who else have we got? We've got Juanita from Colombia. Hi. More people from Turkey, people in India, Libya. I think that was a mixture of India and Libya. I was trying to say at the same time. India and Libya, Somalia. Nice, so many different places. Well, thank you for joining. I'm happy to see you all here. I hope you're having a nice Sunday. I hope it's been relaxing for some of you. I know some of you Sunday is more of a work day, but I hope it's still been nice. Today we are, as you can see, we're going to talk about accent, and we're going to talk about the British accent. You'll see why I'm doing this soon, about the British accent and Scottish accent. So the reason I'm saying this with British accent, because what is a British accent? It's quite hard to just say there's one British accent, but I do see a lot of English teachers or even just, I don't know, pages, blogs, websites online talking about a British accent, or I have students asking me about a British accent or saying, I want to speak with a British accent. But to be honest with you, it's quite hard to define what a British accent is because we have so many different regions in the UK and there are so many different accents. But when people are usually talking about this British accent, what they usually are referring to is a standard RP accent. I'm going to write this in the chat for you. Standard RP accent. And RP stands for received pronunciation. Okay, received pronunciation. So when people say a British accent, usually what they mean is this, a standard RP accent, received pronunciation. So this RP accent is seen as, well, it's an accent of Great Britain. It's probably the most widely taught British accent in around the world. Okay, so when people are teaching a British accent, usually they're teaching this standard received pronunciation accent. So today we're going to talk about the difference between British English accent and a Scottish accent. But we're gonna really talk about received pronunciation when we refer to British. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what received pronunciation is before we get into the differences between these accents, because I think it's important to talk about it at the start. So RP, or received pronunciation, and I've got some notes here which I am going to refer to every now and then. So received pronunciation, or RP, it's defined as a regionally neutral, which I'm going to write down, regionally neutral, middle class accent of England. Okay, this is what RP is, a regionally neutral, middle class accent of England. Okay, so only England actually. So if you think about the UK and Britain, we don't just have England. Okay, the UK is made up of other countries as well, but an RP accent is defined as a regionally neutral, middle class accent of England. What does regionally neutral mean? Well, regionally neutral means that you're unable to tell whereabout in the UK, which region in the UK the speaker is from. So when someone is talking and they have an RP accent, you can't say, oh, they're from this part of the UK, or oh, they're from this part of the UK, they're from this region, that region. You can't really tell where they're from. It's a very neutral accent. So regions that we have in the UK, for example, could be Scotland or Wales or Ireland or England, but also then within these regions as well, we have northern accents, southern accents, eastern, western. Okay, we have lots of different accents. Someone's mentioned Cockney, which is an accent which comes from London, more specifically like more East London. So that's another accent. That is not a regionally neutral accent. That's complete opposite. Okay, so you can tell where someone has a Cockney accent, you know which part of the UK and specifically England and specifically even London, you know where they are from. So RP is completely different. It's a very neutral accent, and this is the most widely taught British accent around the world. So often people say, oh, is this the accent the Queen had? So is this, the Queen's English? Often it's referred to as when you talk about RP. Does the Queen talk with an RP accent? So she did kind of have an RP accent, but it was actually not quite an RP accent. But I guess it was kind of close in some ways, but not really. I think a lot of people just think that. A lot of people also talk about BBC News. If you ever watch news programs from the UK to practice your English, you might watch BBC English as well on YouTube, or you might follow them on Instagram. So a lot of people also think that BBC News presenters all talk with an RP accent. And it is true that in the past, BBC presenters did, I think it was a requirement that they had to speak with an RP accent, this neutral British accent. But nowadays, this is not a requirement. And actually, if you watch BBC News now, you will hear a range of different accents from the UK. This is just because society is more inclusive now. So people are talking with different accents that are presenters, not only this neutral accent. So, who actually speaks with this RP accent? I don't know, I'll ask you guys, what percentage of people, I know you might not know, so it's just a guess, what percentage of people who live in the UK actually speak with this standard RP accent? What percentage of people do you think have this accent? Any guesses? See what people think. You can write in the chat, let me know if you have an idea. So we've got, someone says, I guess it might be about 50%. I can see why you would think that, yeah. Some people are saying really high, so 80%, 70%, 69%. And then some people, Melly, you've said only 5%. We've got 30%. Okay, well, actually, it's only around 2%. Only 2% of people who are from the UK or who live in the UK speak with this received pronunciation accent. So as you, although, I'm going to write that in here, 2%. Yeah, 2%. So although this is the most widely taught accent, like British accent around the world, only 2% of people, around 2%, actually have this accent. Some people might put this accent on, maybe if they are making videos for English learners, or maybe some news presenters might still put this accent on, but it's not actually how they speak. It's not their natural accent. Some people might have, some similarities to this accent, but they don't have this RP accent. So most people in the UK speak with a more regional accent. So usually if I meet someone, a native English speaker from the UK, and they're talking, I can tell which part of the UK they're from very quickly. I can say, oh, you're from, South England somewhere, or you're from this city even, or you're from this part of Scotland. I can tell where they're from just from their accent quite quickly. Whereas if they had an RP accent, I wouldn't really be able to tell where they were from. I would like, okay, well, you're definitely English because it's a standard accent from England, but I wouldn't be able to tell which part of England they were from. And also, it would be quite a weird accent for me to hear because it's not very common. So that's why it's important for English learners to listen to different learning materials, because often if you are only using learning materials that are aimed at English learners, not always, but sometimes this will be an RP accent that you're listening to, which is totally fine. And sometimes it's a lot easier for learners to understand this accent because it's more clear. And some regional accents can be very difficult to understand at first. But as your English improves and your level gets a bit higher, I would definitely recommend that you try listening to different accents, because it means that your listening skills and your understanding skills are going to improve. And then when you want to speak to, if your goal is to communicate with a native English speaker from the UK, then you're more likely to be able to understand what they're saying and you find it much easier. Also, if you are wanting to learn a British accent, if you say, oh, I want to have a British accent, which we'll discuss a bit more later, but if you want to have a British accent and you're an English learner, it's okay to learn the RP accent. You might find it the easiest accent to learn. That's absolutely okay. But it doesn't mean you're going to sound more British than if you have another sort of regional British accent. Because as we said, only 2% of people in the UK actually speak like this. It's okay if you decide you want to speak like this, but it doesn't mean you're going to sound more British than someone who doesn't have this accent. So just wanted to get into that very quickly. And today, then, we are going to talk about the standard RP accent because I don't have time to go for every single British accent. That would take a long time. So we are going to compare the standard received pronunciation accent, the British accent, and we're going to compare that with the Scottish accent, which is a regional accent. So we're going to look at the differences between this RP accent and a more regional accent. And I have chosen Scottish because why? Because I am Scottish. So I live in London now. I live in England, but I'm from Scotland. I've spent most of I haven't worked. Yeah, I've spent most of my life. I was trying to do a calculation there. I spent most of my life living in Scotland, um, and I don't know if you guys can tell this, but my Scottish accent is not really, really strong. So there are obviously variations in accents from different regions, but there are also variations in accent within these regions. So even within Scotland, there are differences in accent. So when I talk about the differences today, I just want you to think we're referring to received pronunciation for British and Scottish. We're going to look at a standard Scottish accent because there will be differences depending which part of Scotland someone's from. But just for the purpose of this lesson today, we're going to just look at these two standard accents and then see. Someone said, Scottish is considered the most difficult, isn't it? I mean, to be honest with you, yes and no. I think a lot of people think Scottish accents can be difficult to understand. But I also think some Irish accents can be quite difficult. And then within the UK, within England, there are a lot of really, really strong accents from different regions that personally I would find more difficult to understand than Scottish accents. It really, really depends. I think the thing is a lot of regional accents in England are not spoken about enough online and they're not taught enough to English learners. So maybe you haven't come across these accents. So you might have heard a Scottish accent and then an RP accent. And obviously, a Scottish accent is more difficult to understand. So, yeah, there are so many different accents. What I would say is today I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best to give you examples of how these accents sound, but I'm not very good at doing accents, unfortunately. I'm not an actor. Obviously, I can do Scottish accents because I'm Scottish. Received pronunciation, I can try and like show you examples of words and phrases and how you might say them with this accent. But what I would recommend, if this is a topic you are interested in, I would recommend that after this lesson, you go away and you have a little look online on YouTube and stuff to see what these different accents sound like. And then you can even start looking at more regional accents in England as well and in the UK, so not just a Scottish regional accent. So yeah, just so you can get a better idea of how it sounds and practice your listening skills. Today I'm more just going to try and talk about the differences, but I will try and give you some examples. But please be kind to me because I'm not very good at doing accents. Okay, so the first difference we're going to look at today, we've got a few differences between these two accents. The first difference we're going to look at is vowels, okay? Differences in vowels. So let me just get this a bit closer for you. So I've got some examples here of words and some differences that we might have. I can see a lot of you asking questions. I will give you a chance to ask some questions at the end. So I might just go through this just now, and then any questions you have, if you save them for the end, if that's okay, and we will go over them then. And also don't worry if you're joining later because this is going to be saved and you'll be able to watch it all the way from beginning to end after this lesson. So yeah, vowel sounds. For example, in RP, with an RP accent, which is the British accent we're looking at today, we have long vowel sounds and short vowel sounds. I mean, you have this in Scottish too, but with the Scottish accent, there are fewer vowel sounds and fewer variations in vowel sounds. For example, if we look at these two words, okay, with an RP accent in received pronunciation, these two words would sound different, okay? They have different meanings. These are completely different words. They have different spellings. The vowel sounds are different, okay? We've got A and U here, and we've got an O here. And how these would sound with this received pronunciation accent is different. So we'd say caught, okay, caught, so it's quite long. And then we'd say caught, caught, so it's much shorter. Okay, caught and caught. It's quite hard for me to do the difference. I hope you can notice that though. And then with a Scottish accent, these would sound the same. There wouldn't really be much difference, or more similar anyway. Both of them would be shorter vowel sounds, so we'd say caught and caught. Caught and caught. Okay, it's the same. Or similar, more similar. And then again, with a lot of A words with the A vowel sound, okay? When it comes to received pronunciation accent, these sound different, okay? These two sound different. So we have, no, they don't, sorry. They sound the same. With a received pronunciation accent, these sound different to a Scottish accent, okay? So the vowel sound here is different with a received pronunciation accent to a Scottish accent. So for example, this one with a received pronunciation accent would sound like bath, bath. It's more like ah, ah. It's a longer vowel sound. And same as this one. This one would sound like laugh. It's more of an ah sound. It's a longer sound. Our mouth wouldn't be as open. We would just go ah, laugh, bath. Okay? Whereas with the Scottish accent, the vowel sound here would be much shorter. We would open our mouth more and we would say bath, laugh. Bath, laugh. Listen to the difference again. With an RP accent, bath. With a Scottish accent, bath. With an RP accent, laugh. With an RP accent, laugh. Okay? Someone's just asking, what is received pronunciation? So you can watch this from the beginning again if you missed it, but just a quick recap. Received pronunciation is the standard British accent, which is most widely taught around the world. However, it's not very commonly spoken in the UK in reality, but we're using it as a comparison today to compare it from a Scottish accent, a more regional accent. I hope that helps. Okay, so these are some of the vowel differences. Another difference is sometimes this one. So when we say I or I'm, with a received pronunciation, it might sound more like that. Often in Scottish, we would say or I or am for I'm, especially in a longer sentence, okay? So for example, if you said, I'm going to go to the shop, with a Scottish accent, you might say, I'm going to go to the shop. I'm going to go to the shop. More like am rather than I'm. So some vowel sounds are different with these two accents. That's one of the big differences. Let's move on to another difference between these two accents. So if we are looking at consonant sounds, we have the R sound, the R sound. Now this is a very big difference. This is a big telltale sign if someone is speaking with a Scottish accent or a more neutral accent. So with RP, okay, with the standard British accent, the R sound vanishes in some words. It's silent. The R is silent. We don't pronounce it. Whereas with a Scottish accent, it is pronounced, and actually it's a lot harsher sounding, and often we roll the R. And actually, this difference means that a standard Scottish accent is actually closer, when we talk about this, to a standard American accent, because in a standard American accent, we also pronounce the R. Okay, so this RP accent, or sort of standard British accent where we don't pronounce the R, is different from a Scottish accent and from an American accent. So if the R sound is in the middle of the words, with an RP accent, we might say it like girl, girl, or world, or curl, okay? Maybe you even pronounce it less so than that. And then with a Scottish accent, you can really hear the R sound. So you might say girl, world, curl, okay? We roll the R, we really pronounce it. So that's a big difference. Also, if we look at words where there is an R at the end of the word, for example, let me write some here. Words like this. Okay, so the R at the end of the words is not pronounced with the standard British accent. We would say car, star, bar. Instead of pronouncing the R, we just make the vowel sound longer. So the A is elongated at the end. We don't pronounce the R. But with a Scottish accent, we do, and we roll it. So we would say car, star, bar, which is also is also closer to an American accent, a standard American accent. And some Scottish people really pronounce the R, which is not my accent, but I'll try. Sometimes they say car, bar, or like with girl, they'd be like girl, girl. Okay, they like really pronounce the R in the middle, but that's really hard for me to do because it's not my accent. It's not my Scottish accent that I have. But yeah, you can see the difference there, at least I hope. And another difference we're going to look at is the glottal stop, okay? So the glottal stop. The glottal stop is when the letter T or the T sound is cut between vowels. So with a Scottish accent, this is very common. But with an RP accent or standard British accent, they don't do this. They pronounce the T's. However, this is something that actually with a lot of regional accents, people do cut the T's, okay? So don't think that someone who's from Britain or from England, or it's only Scottish people who cut the T's. A lot of people do this, but if we think about a standard British accent, an RP accent, traditionally the T's are pronounced. So for example, you would say with an RP accent, you would say water, water, okay? You pronounce the T. Or better, better. But with a Scottish accent, you would cut the T's. So you might say water or better, okay? Water, better. But also nowadays, this glottal stop is common with a lot of different accents. So you will hear it quite a lot. Water, better. Okay. Another difference, which I'm going to mention quickly, is word stress. Okay, this is another difference. So word stress with received pronunciation, for example, if verbs are like this, verbs which end in eyes, okay, the stress is placed on the first syllables with a standard British accent. So for example, we would say advertise, advertise. Okay, the stress is placed on the first syllable. Realize, realize. The stress is placed on the first syllable. And the last one, recognize, recognize. But with a standard Scottish accent, not all Scottish accents, a standard Scottish accent, the stress is placed on the last syllable. So we'd say advertise, advertise. realize, and recognize. Okay, so this is another difference. And we do have some general differences with stress, rhythm, intonation, but these also do really vary depending on which part of Scotland you're from. And it can vary depending on the speaker as well. So I'm not going to go into them too much today, but if you're listening to a Scottish accent and then you listen to an RP accent, you will just hear a slight difference in the natural kind of rhythm and intonation. So that's just another difference to know. So if you want to speak with a Scottish accent, you can do some of these things, okay? If you think, oh, I want to try and practice my Scottish accent, I want to speak like that, you can do some of these things, okay? So you can look at the vowel sounds, especially with words like bath and laugh. So instead of saying bath and laugh, you can say bath, laugh. And you can also focus on the R sound. So especially in between words, girl, world, curl, and then pronouncing the R at the end, you can say car, bar, yeah. And then another thing you can do is look at the glottal stop. So you can cut the T between words. So water, better, bitten, yeah. Okay. Let me just have a quick look at what some of you are saying in the chat before I go on to some practice sentences for you. Bath pronunciation is also similar to American payment. Yeah, you're right, it is. So this is another similarity to standard American accent, is these vowel sounds in Scottish, with a Scottish accent. Again, this is something that's quite similar to American. So you could argue that phonetically, how the language sounds, how the accent sounds, a Scottish accent actually shares more similarities with an American accent. However, it also does share similarities with British accents. So it's kind of, yeah, it doesn't sound like an American accent, but there are some similarities. And I have had people before saying, like, asking if I'm American when I first start talking, and I think it's probably because of these similarities that the accents do have in common. I listened to some episodes from Coffee Break English. A male teacher in the show always pronounces the vowel ER to ear. Like where to were, heard to heard, paired. Oh yeah, that's another difference. I would do that too, yeah. So instead of were, you'd say where. Instead of heard, you'd say heard, you'd say haired. That depends. Thank you. That's a really interesting comment. Thanks for sharing that. That again depends on the place you're from in Scotland. That varies depending on what region in Scotland you're from. So with a standard Scottish accent, not necessarily, but with some Scottish accents, yes, this is another difference. So I would definitely recommend that you practice listening to different accents just to get an idea of how they sound. But you will find that there are differences within the regions as well. Okay, we're going to do some practice sentences with Scottish accent and RP accent, just for you to try and hear the difference a bit more. I know that listening to accents and differences between them can be really hard, but it's something that if you practice more and more, it will become easier for you. So this sentence, with an RP accent, we might say, the girl is eating butter. Something like that. The girl is eating butter. But with more of a Scottish accent, I mean, that still was kind of a Scottish accent because I'm Scottish, but you know what I mean. With a more Scottish accent, it would be more like, the girl is eating butter. Okay, the girl is eating butter. So we're using the glottal stops. We're focusing on the R sound. Okay. And then another example, we'll just do one more. And then I'm going to do a little activity with you guys. This one. What? Okay, this one. With an RP accent, we might say, sorry, my writing's terrible. We might say, I walked past the car. Okay. And then with a Scottish accent, we might say, I walked past, okay, here rather than past the car. Really pronouncing the R in car rather than car. Okay. Another thing I just want to quickly mention is slang, vocabulary, idioms. I'm not going to get into that too much because it's something different. Today we're talking about pronunciation and accent, but obviously between different regions in the UK, we have different slang, we have different vocabulary, we have different idioms. There are different slang phrases and words in different regions, and this is another way of differentiating between where like someone's from. So someone might use certain vocabulary and then you're like, oh, that's, they're from that part of the UK and that's why they say it like that. So this is something that's quite interesting to learn about as well, but we're not going to get into that in this lesson. I think I might have we done a lesson? We've done a lesson on British slang before, definitely. Maybe we'll do a Scottish slang one if we haven't already. Could be something we do for the future. Okay, so we're going to do a quick activity. I'm going to write a word down on the board, and then I'm going to say it. And I'm going to either say it with a standard Scottish accent, or I'm going to try and say it with a standard British RP accent. And I want you to tell me what one you think it is. Is it a standard Scottish accent, or is it standard RP accent? Okay, so this word. Okay, are you ready? World. Is this more of an RP accent or is this more of a standard Scottish accent? World. Yes, thank you, Marta. I was getting worried there that I wasn't really saying it very well. It's quite difficult because obviously I am Scottish, so everything might sound a little bit Scottish, but if we just go by the things which I've explained to you, it's more of an RP accent, world, okay? With a Scottish accent, we would really pronounce this R, so world, okay? World, if it was Scottish. Okay, the next one. The next one is okay, listen to how I say it and let me know if it's Scottish or RP, British. Water. What do you think? Yeah, that was very, very fast, Esdras. Water. It's a Scottish accent, okay, because we are using the glottal stop and also we're pronouncing the R more at the end. Water. With an RP accent, it might be more like water, okay? Next one. Last word, and then we'll do a couple of sentences. Okay. This one, bath. Okay, is this in more of an RP accent, or is this with more of a standard Scottish accent? Yeah, you all got that one. Well done. It's more of an RP accent, bath. If it was Scottish, it would be more like bath. Okay, more of an ah sound, bath. Okay. And we'll just do a couple of sentences. Let me write them down. I hope you can understand it with my bad handwriting. Let me get it here. Okay, this one. I need to say it in my head first to practice it in my mind. Okay, let me know if it sounds more like RP or more like Scottish from the things I've told you. I was bitten by a mosquito. I was bitten by a mosquito. I hope you could understand that. It's written down. Yeah, that was definitely Scottish. I started sounding more Scottish than usual there, didn't I? I was bitten by a mosquito. Okay, because we really hear these glottal stops, don't we? And also this I sounds more, or I sounds more like ah. Okay, and one more sentence. Let me rub that off. Okay, last one is, okay, this one. I laughed at the girl. I laughed at the girl. I laughed. No, not laughed. I laughed. I've lost it. I can't do it. Yeah, you can probably see how hard that was for me to do there with an RP accent. With a Scottish accent, so that was RP. With a Scottish accent, it would be more like I laughed at the girl. I laughed at the girl. Okay, girl. Well done. Well done, guys. Thanks for being patient with me with my accents. But I hope just from talking about it as well, you can see sort of, what the differences are. But I definitely advise you to go away and have a little look online, listen to some videos, watch some videos, find some podcasts with Scottish people, listen to the accent and see if you can notice these differences, which I've gone over today. If you have any questions, please ask away in the chat. I have time for a couple of questions. And while you do that, I'll just have a little chat to you about a few things. So just to conclude, just something to mention. Please remember that there is no correct accent or better accent to have. I have seen people like teachers or just other people online saying that the RP accent is the best accent and you really need to have this accent. Firstly, no, as we already discussed, only 2% of people in the UK actually speak with the RP accent, so this is not true. And secondly, no accent is better than another accent. Your accent is individual to you, and I just advise you to speak with the accent you feel the most comfortable in. English is a global language. We have English speakers from all over the world with so many different accents, and it does not matter what accent you use as long as you are understood, as long as you can be understood, as long as you can communicate, as long as your pronunciation is correct. But obviously, there's variations in pronunciation, but as long as you don't just say something, the complete wrong way and it's not understandable. But I really don't think accent is important. I think even if you have your own accent from your language, but as long as you're pronouncing things correctly, that's not an issue. That's not a problem. Often it sounds more natural. Some learners, they might try really hard to have an RP accent or to try really hard to have a Scottish accent, but because it doesn't feel natural to them, it doesn't sound as natural. So my advice is, do not worry about accent. Focus on speaking clearly, speaking correctly, being able to communicate, being able to be understood. But I think it's important to listen to different accents and learn about different accents because it will improve your listening skills, it will improve your understanding skills, and it will make it easier for you to communicate with native speakers ultimately, if that's your goal. Because if you're only listening to a standard British accent or an RP accent, if you then try and listen to someone with a different accent, you might really struggle. So it's good to listen to different accents. But when it comes to speaking, do not worry about which accent you have. And that's what I would say. Okay, so any questions? What have you got? Zindagi, which accent is easy to speak and learn? Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I said, you don't need to worry about accent. I know you've said, but I'm right. But I mean, I don't know. I guess that depends on you. I think if you focus really hard on one accent, then you could probably learn it. I would say that the RP accent, the standard British accent, is probably the easiest in a way because there are a lot more learning materials out there. where they use this accent. It's more neutral. So I'd say that, if you're a beginner in English, it's quite good to listen to this accent. But as you progress, I think it's good to start listening to other accents. But I wouldn't worry about speaking with a specific accent. I don't think that's important for English learners. Um, Let me see, what else have I got? A lot of comments. Thank you, thank you. I hope it was interesting. I know Scottish guys often say I as yes. Do women also say that? Yeah, definitely. There's not really a difference between men and women in Scotland when it comes to what like language and vocabulary they use. We all use the same vocabulary. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It depends which part of Scotland you're from, if you use different slang. So yeah, a lot of people do say I instead of yes. I personally don't really say this, but a lot of my friends do. But it doesn't change if you're a man or a woman. It just depends on the person, maybe if their family used that slang or vocabulary, and which part of Scotland they're from. What's wrong if I mix a lot of accents in one sentence? No, I think it's fine. I think if you have a mixture of accents, it's okay. I mean, that's how I talk, really, because some words that I say sound more Scottish and some words that I say sound more English. So I do that, and I'm a native speaker. Don't think I sound weird. Maybe I do, but it's not wrong at all. I do that. I'm a native speaker, so it's fine if you mix accents. Actually, a lot of English learners do kind of have this sort of mixture of accents when they speak, just because they're listening to learning materials from so many different parts of the world where they speak English, and it's very normal. So don't worry about that at all, as long as you're understood. Okay. Very quickly, I just want to chat to you a little bit about a way that you can listen to more accents and practice your English. So if you don't already use Cambly to learn English and study with teachers, I really do recommend it. It's a great way to improve your listening skills, your understanding skills, but also it's like one of the best ways to improve your speaking skills, because you are able to speak in real life and have real life conversations with native speakers. And you can listen to loads of different accents because you've got English speakers from all over the world on Cambly. So it's a really good way to practice listening to different accents if that's something you're interested in. And you can get up to 36% off Cambly with this code, Go Live. And you will also find a link with this code at the bottom of the video. And thank you very much for joining today, guys. It was really nice to have you all here. I hope that it wasn't too difficult. I know it's a difficult topic, talking about accents and pronunciation. Please don't stress about it. It's something that gets easier the more practice you have listening to different accents. And yeah, I'd say just keep listening to different accents, keep practicing, and it will become easier for you. Please join us next week on Saturday. We will have another live lesson. These live lessons take place every week on Saturdays and Sundays. We alternate them now. I hope today was interesting, and I hope to see you in my next live lesson, which will be in a few weeks' time. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you again. Bye.